Hi again then guys, and welcome to another tune setup, an N specific class setup in fact for Gran Turismo Sport, and it's been a hot minute since we did the last one. I was actually surprised, to be honest, how well the last tune that I did for Gran Turismo Sport did for the Porsche 911 GT3 in the N400 class. So now I'm taking a look at another car which offers great value, great performance, and is also fairly beginner friendly. In fact, this one is definitely a lot more beginner friendly than the Porsche, and also a lot cheaper. This is under 100 grand for, of course, a significant new car in the game, the newer generation 2017 Nissan Gtr. Now, as you can see, I have dropped the weight, but that's not essential. You can still get it into the N500 class, which is what this tune is for, without doing that. So if you don't have enough mileage points or just don't want to, that's absolutely fine. You can still do all of the rest. It just helps out, of course. Now, as far as the power, as you can see, you don't need to upgrade that at all. You can just drop it down to 96%, which will immediately allow you into the N500 class. Now, although this tune is for the N500 category, just like the Porsche was for N400, you don't have to keep it in that class. You can use this same essential concept for whichever class you want. So even if you upgrade the power, you can still basically use the same tune and just alter a couple of minor things, in particular like the gearbox. But essentially the concept will work for any class that you want to use it for. I just set it for N500 because it's quite beginner friendly and it's a very useful car at that level. Now, I've got traction control off, as you can see, of course. I've gone for Sport Soft because you don't want to go too far into the overkill territory, just to show what the car can do. Brake balance I haven't affected, and incidentally, it is kind of a shame that you can't upgrade the brakes on any of the cars on the game. That is a very, very big oversight that I hope they change, because this is one of those cars that could do with having race brakes, really, especially with the weight that it's carrying. Now, as far as the suspension, I would recommend having the lowest ride height, because in a car that has a good amount of suspension travel stock and also weighs quite a lot, you want to keep that centre of gravity nice and low, which also reduces body roll in corners. Now, to compound the lack of body roll, you want to also stiffen up basically everything. So we've stiffened up the frequency of the suspension as well to 2.05. Anti-roll I've got fairly high on 27, what am I talking about, on 7 even, which is more of an increase on the back, I think, if I remember correctly, than on the front. The dampers I've increased to 63 and 93 for compression and rebound. Camber and tow, as I would usually have, is on neutral. You can of course use some if you want to. Some people prefer that, I know. For me personally, I don't. As far as aero, you can't adjust that on this one. As far as the drivetrain, I would recommend having the lowest initial torque and the highest settings all round for acceleration and deceleration. But again, different people have different preferences, of course, so feel free to change that around. If you do fancy trying something different though, you might want to try putting initial torque on the front up to 10. It changes the handling considerably and makes it, I would say, a little bit more beginner friendly. It's already quite beginner friendly, but that makes it even more so. It really keeps that front end in line and allows it to some degree, handle a little bit more like a front wheel drive car with that kind of weight to the front end. As far as the gearbox, of course, specifically with this power, I've got the auto setting on 205, and then as far as the individual gears, 2.7, 1.9, 1.45, 1.15, 0.925 and 0.775, with a final drive of 3.7. So that's it for the tune overall, and as I said, there is, as with all of my tunes, a ton of variation that you can use to alter it to your personal preference, to whatever class you want to use it for. This car certainly has a huge range of potential, N5, 6, 7, 8. So, with that in mind, let's of course take it out on a circuit, the Nordschleife in particular, to see what this N500 version can do. Now, as far as lap times go, this is definitely one of those cars for sure, and I would also say one of those tune setups which I seem to be pretty good at making. And I don't mean that in a big-headed way. I seem to be quite good at making tunes that allow people to be better than I am. It's kind of a weird skill to have, I guess, but as far as tuning goes, it's a good one to have. At the end of the day, I want you to be faster than me. That's the whole point of using my tunes, to make you better. So, with that being said, this car could do a lap of the Nordschleife for me in 7 minutes 29 seconds. Now, I don't really have much of a point of reference yet on GT Sport for that. That seems decent. I don't know if that's great for the N500 class, I wouldn't go that far, but this definitely feels like the kind of car for sure, but also potentially the kind of tune which even in the N500 class, there are certain ones of you guys who for sure could push this car harder than I did. I was not pushing this car to the limit, certainly not. I think I was probably using maybe, say, 70% of its ability, possibly pushing 80, but not really any more than that, I don't think. I was definitely holding back a little bit, so I have no doubt that you could take this probably at least 10 or 15 seconds quicker than me. I have no doubt about that. Now, again, in the grand scheme of things, I don't know if that makes it a good car or an outstanding car, but it certainly feels more than fast enough. And as you guys may have noticed, what I'm kind of doing with these tunes on GT Sport is trying to first and foremost provide tunes that are very useful to people who are not used to driving on the game, to beginners not in the sense of experience but in the sense of just being new to these physics, and to give you a car which feels more familiar to what you're used to on GT4, 5 and 6, to allow you to get into the game and use these cars without having much trouble, so that you can get into the flow of the game and ease yourself in with a car that can at the same time dominate the category that it's in, certainly against the AI and potentially online as well. So if you do decide to use this car and this tune, or a variation in a different class entirely, either way I hope you have a huge amount of fun with it and win races with it. And of course, if you'd like to check out more tunes that we've already done and in the future, you can click through to see those at the end of this very video. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.